Greetings, everyone. It's Glenn Kellaway coming to you from the basement. I'm going to try a new series here. I'm going to do an experimental video and see if this catches on, if anybody's interested. It's kind of, I guess the theme is gateways to bands that aren't as accessible as some. You know, it's not the Beatles where everybody just loves it. It's, you have to kind of explore. Maybe they have vast catalogues and you can buy the wrong thing and it sets you down the wrong path. The first band I'm going to concentrate on is the Grateful Dead. So this is kind of like a beginner's guide to the Grateful Dead if anybody's interested in just checking them out, because, man, this is a huge rabbit hole. And you grab the wrong album and you just go, first impression is I don't like the Grateful Dead. And I think there's a way to appreciate these bands. I'm just going to tell you the way I did it. So, first of all, I was not a huge Grateful Dead fan back in the late 60s or 70s. I got to see them in 1970, and but really, it's not like a big great memory of me other than just a badge of honor saying I got to see the Grateful Dead with Pigpen and that. So I was much more of a Jefferson Airplane fan, Country Joe and the Fish, Quicksilver. They were my top three San Francisco bands from the Summer of Love type era. But strangely, I got into the Grateful Dead, although I did like Friend of the Devil and the, Casey Jones and the songs that you heard. It was cool. I didn't dislike the Grateful Dead. I liked them. I just didn't buy their records. I got into them another way, acoustically, through Jerry Garcia's acoustic band. Once I heard that, which was like mid-'80s or something, this was the album that really, really got me. Jerry Garcia acoustic band. It is Jerry with acoustic guitar, bass, mandolin. There's no banjo. Don't have to worry about a banjo. And the songs on here are really good. They do some Dead. They did a great version of Ripple. That was kind of like my introduction to Ripple, really. I and fell in love with the song, so now it's like my favorite song of all time. But they do a lot of old traditional songs like Spike Driving Blues. I've been all around this world. I'm here to get my baby out of jail. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. They do an amazing version of that. Deep Ellum Blues. Some Jimmy Rogers stuff and that. It's a really easy, accessible album if you like acoustic music. And that's what got me really interested in was Jerry Garcia solo. The more I listened to Jerry Garcia solo, the closer I got to wanting to experience the Dead. So I just want to turn you on to a few Jerry things just to start off. So this series started out called the Jerry Garcia Live Series. This is volume 1. This came out, I don't know, man, it's got to be 10 years ago. There are now up to like 17, 18, maybe 19 volumes of this series. One thing about Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, they taped every show, man. There's like, I think over 3,000 shows for the Grateful Dead tape. That's why it's such a big rabbit hole. But Jerry's acoustic band, or not, this is not even acoustic. Some of it's electric, some of it's acoustic. But these are great, and he always does great covers. He always does lots of Dylan songs. This one in particular, he does How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You on here. Simple Twist of Fate, the Dylan song. That's All Right Mama. That's What Love Will Make You Do, which is an old Motown song. Yeah, just stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Dear Prudence, Beatles song. So these things, any of these Jerry Garcia Live Volume 1 up to 17, 18 are really accessible. Most of them are really good. He also had Jerry came out of the bluegrass community and forged a relationship with a lifelong friendship with David Grisman, and they started recording together in the 80s. And this is an amazing album too. Jerry Garcia, David Grisman, just Grisman Garcia it's called, and they do a version of The Thrill Is Gone, the B.B. King song on here. They do a slower version of Friend of the Devil. They do a great Irving Berlin song called Russian Lullaby. This is a really, really good album. It sounds amazing. This is, of course, the Mo-Fi, which is amazing. If you want something more rocky, bluesy, Jerry also did some work with a keyboard player by the name of Merle Sanders. You can get, this is a complete box set, but you can buy these individually too. Keystone Sessions, where they do songs like High Heel Sneakers, The Harder They Come, the Jimmy Cliff song, a couple of Dylan songs, some jazz stuff like My Funny Valentine, that song Mystery Train, That's All Right Mama, I Second That Emotion, Positively 4th Street, How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You. So anything with Jerry Garcia and Merle Sanders, bit more bluesy, pretty cool stuff. So that's kind of was my gateway into the Dead. And then I got this Grateful Dead Reckoning. This is a live acoustic Dead album. It's really, really good. Like, this one blew me away. They do a lot of Dead songs on here, like songs like Dire Wolf, which was on Working Man's Dead. The Race Is On, the George Jones song. Dark Hollow, which is an old bluegrass song. Been All Around This World. Ripples on here. This is fantastic. Reckoning, Grateful Dead. If you like acoustic music, start with this, with the Grateful Dead. I guarantee you will love it. One of the entry points for sure. Of course, if you're looking for Grateful Dead studio albums, they're all over the place. They're a mess. Some of them they have just great songs on them, and some of them just go off on tangents. I don't know. They're just, it's funny that the studio albums are not the place to start with the Grateful Dead, except for a few. So if you want something more mainstream, the most mainstream album they had, and probably the only hit album they ever had, was In the Dark, which had their only hit song, Touch of Grey, on it. This is a really good album, and very accessible. A good place to start. I know a lot of Deadheads are going to watch this and go, what are you telling them to start in the late period for? And I understand if you're a beginner and you want an introduction where it's not going to hurt your ears or you're not going to get turned off, I think you need to start with a little bit of sugar, So, In the Dark, highly recommend. The other two, obviously, if you're going to go studio albums, the two that were released in 1970 was American Beauty, my favorite Grateful Dead album, and Working Man's Dead. These were recorded the same year, very similar. They're kind of tied to each other. This one, the Dead were hanging out with David Crosby, Stephen Stills. Learned a lot of harmonies from those guys, and you can hear it in this album. This is, again, a very accessible album. Nothing strange on this one at all. It's a very cool record. Highly recommend American Beauty or Working Man's Dead. Okay, now, this is where it all gets confusing, the live stuff. So the Grateful Dead basically has about 4 or 5 different, you could break the band down into about 4 or 5 different segments. The original band, 65, 66, 67 to 1970, to maybe to 72, when Rob McKernan, better known as Pigpen, was in the band. He was kind of the leader of the band when it started. He's the one who drove them into electric. They started out as a jug band, blues jug band. And, of course, when the Beatles hit and everything went electric, they picked up electric instruments. And Pigpen was pretty much the leader of the band, doing stuff like, Shine Your Love Light and all these songs. So the Dead back then is more bluesy, still a bit psychedelic, but there's Pigpen right there, and there's Jerry. So you can get, if you want to listen to stuff like that, there's a live album called Fillmore West, 1969. It's got Mountain Dew on it, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, I'm a King Bee, Turn on Your Love Light, which I said was kind of like their showstopper. Yeah, this is, and it's got like the drums and the long jammy thing and stuff too in this. So if you're interested in listening to some of that, this is highly recommended. It's pretty good. Now, there's all kinds of Grateful Dead releases that came out. First as Dick's Picks. Dick Lemieux. He worked for the Dead, and he was kind of the archivist. And he would put out these volumes. There's volume 1 to 36 on this. Again, this series is all over the place. You might get a show from 1969. You might get a show from 1995. This one in particular is 1978. So if you're going for the Dick Picks, watch the year. Don't grab one. If you want to listen to the early Dead, the more blues stuff, if you want to go 72, which is kind of their peak period, I think, where they were really musically in tune, vocally a bit more pleasant on the ears. 72 is probably the great live thing to start, but don't expect the Dead that you buy that's from 1972 to sound like the Dead in 1976 or 78 or 81 or 90, early 90s. It's all different. So you kind of gotta feel your way through and see which period, like, because at first it was like Pigpen left, and then they brought in Donna Godchow and Keith on keyboards. Her vocals on some of the live stuff can be a bit grating in the ears in some songs. That turned me off at first. I got used to it. Then once they left and they brought in, like, I mean, even Bruce Hornsby did the period with the Dead. At the end, it was a gentleman by the name of Brett Midland, who unfortunately passed away of a drug overdose when he was in the band, and he has a real kind of a poppy, kind of a Michael Bolton voice. And a lot of people don't like that it didn't sit well with the Dead. I happen to like it, but a lot of people don't. So you'll hear that, which is a much more easy on the ears. If you're more of a pop music kind of guy or whatever, that's the Brett Midland period is, I think, right up your alley. So Dick's Picks, Dave's Picks. Dave's Picks are current now. You can get Dave's Picks every year. They bring out another one. I haven't got a ton of them. I've got like about 6 of the volumes. I don't know what volume they're up to now. There might be 20 of these now, maybe more. They're all numbered and limited edition from whatever shows. This one is particular. This is from 1974. So now here's a show I really like. This is from 1990, but I think this is a great show. Wake Up to Find Out. It was recorded at Nassau Coliseum. Branford Marsalis, if you're into a bit of jazz, Branford Marsalis plays on this album. He guests on it. It's great. Like, I mean, he does some great stuff. They do a great version of Eyes of the World on here, and Bird Song, which was written about Janis Joplin. I think this is a great album. It's the Brett Midland period. Now, what I would recommend for live stuff is 1972 to start. 2 things. Europe 72, which you can buy Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is a 3-disc set. They toured Europe with a big entourage and recorded all the shoes. This Europe 72 came out. Now, granted, they went into the studio and they fixed up the vocals. They re-recorded some of the leads, I think, and stuff like that. So it's like typical live album. They're all kind of doctored up in the studio and correct all the mistakes and whatever. But fantastic place to start for Live Dead, 1972. Now, what's confusing about Europe 72 is they recorded all the shows and they release all the shows. So don't worry about whatever one you grab is good. Like, I've got all these. There's one from Denmark, and one from Newcastle, and one from Copenhagen. It's just like if you find any of these, they're all associated with the Europe 72 tour. So don't worry about it. This one came out recently, London, England, May 26, 1972, the Lyceum Theatre. This was just released last year, 4-disc set. It's fantastic. And Truckin's on here, which I think everybody knows. Yeah, this is awesome. Highly recommend it. Now, the other one that came out in 1972, when they got back from Europe, they did a show in Oregon, and it was to raise money for something, and it was the hottest day on record. And they played, and this came out, I'm going to say 10, 12 years ago. It comes with a Blu-ray video or a DVD video, whichever you want to pay for, but it's called Sunshine Daydream. This I probably like more than Europe 72. I think they're on fire on this album. It's fantastic. They do a great version of Promised Land. It's fantastic. It really is excellent. I highly recommend Sunshine Daydream. Great as a place to start. I'm a big fan of 74 to 77 because they started to doing some of the songs on their sets that are on their maybe 4th, 5th, 6th studio albums. Songs like Eyes of the World, Franklin's Tower, and songs like that I incorporate into their sets that I absolutely love. So I'm going to say Grateful Dead, Pacific Northwest, which I have the big gigantic box set, which the artwork is by an indigenous artist from up in the Northwest. And this is awesome. Anything you see from the Pacific Northwest sets is worth getting. So let me know if this was helpful to you at all. Like I said, it's a giant rabbit hole. Just make sure you start in the right spot. Do some digging. Make some notes off this video, whatever. I appreciate it. Let me know if this was any help to you whatsoever. I'm going to try and figure out another band to do if anybody watches this, and if they don't, then I'll move on. Anyway, have a great day. Live chat Tuesday night. Take care. Have a good one.